This is a video to discuss how we can knit in our I-cords, a beautiful simple embellishment. This is not to be confused with attaching an I-cord on the outside of a garment, but this I-cord is actually knitted in. You can see here that you can barely tell where these I-cords, well, you can't tell, it just looks like that I-cord came right out of the knitted work. These embellishments were examples of how I've knitted in I-cords on my sock. This is the varsity sock, which is featured in my book, The Embellished Sock, Knitted Art for the Foot. And here's another example, the dread socks, where I have 80 I-cords that have been knitted into the top of this sock, and it makes for a wonderful embellishment. It can be used in all kinds of ways. The nice thing about this technique is that on the inside of the work, you'll see that these I-cords are securely attached, and it's even hard to even see almost where they're put in there. So if you were using the same color of yarn, for instance, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell it at all. But it's an easy process, and one that gives you a lot of flexibility on using I-cords as a beautiful embellishment. Let me show you how to do it. You simply work your yarn until you get to you've worked your piece until you get to the place that you want to place an I-cord. Let's say we want to put that I-cord right here. I would take a small stitch holder. In this case, I'm using a coilless pin. You will see these are coilless safety pins. They don't have that standard little circular thing at the end of the pin. It's just a wire that's been around there so your stitches can't get caught in the end of that pin. These pins come in small, medium, and large. I think this is a medium size, and I'm using it just to show you today. But in reality, what I use are the small ones, because like on the dread socks, I have 80 of these I-cords, and you do your entire project, and these pins go along with you. So if you use the big ones, it'll get kind of heavy for you. But for today, we're going to use this medium-sized one. So you get to the point that you want to put the I-cord, and you simply take 2 stitches off and slide them to the stitch holder, the pin, and they're there. Those will become 2 of the 4 stitches that you will need to make the I-cord. We obviously have a gap in our work now, so we need to add 2 stitches back on or cast them on. We're going to use the backward loop method, where I simply take my yarn, loop it around my finger, and pull it over the needle. Let me do that again. It just makes a loop and goes over, makes a loop and goes, makes a loop and goes over the needle like that. So you see I now have 2 stitches which replace the 2 stitches that I have on the holder. And then I will just continue to knit, placing more stitches on holders as I want more I-cords. When I finish the work, I'll have a piece that looks like this. You see here are the same 2 stitches placed on a pin, and there's the hole that I'm going to put my I-cord in, and there are 2 stitches waiting on me on the coilless pin. So I take the pin out, and with a double point needle I slide those stitches onto my double point. Now it's important that you use a double point because we're going to be making an I-cord. And to make an I-cord, you simply will have 4 stitches, 4 or 5 stitches, in this case 4 stitches, and you knit those 4 stitches across your work, and then with the double point you slide that back to the thing and you knit again, and you continue to do that. Knit 4 stitches, slide, knit 4 stitches. So we have 2 stitches. To get our 3rd and 4th stitch, instead of picking up the stitches that I cast on, I'm going to come in here on that right hand V of the stitch next to it, of that knit stitch, and I'm going to slide my needle right into that right hand V. See if I can get that a little closer where you can see it. Right into that right hand V, and then I'm going to slide my needle to the other end, and I'm going to pick up the left hand V of that knit stitch there. So you see, let me do that again. Pull it out, and there is the left hand V of that work. Now you'll see I have 4 stitches on my needle, and I can simply pick up my yarn. In this case I'm going to use a contrasting yarn. I can pick up the yarn and knit 4 stitches. Now the first stitch, the way I pick that V up, that made that first stitch to be twisted. So I'm just going to simply knit in the back of that stitch to straighten it up. I'm going to leave about a 6-inch tail, and I'm going to knit the 4 stitches across. That's my first row. Then I will simply, instead of turning the work, I'll just slide the work to the opposite end, and I'll make a classic I-cord. Knit 4 stitches. Oops. All thumbs today. And slide the work to the other end. And I continue to do that, and as I continue, I will end up with a classic I-cord embellishment, or an I-cord. So, once you've knitted that I-cord to the full length that you want it, whatever that length is, you'll see that it is there. You will see that you have a yarn here that's at where you've cast it off. You just simply pull that last yarn through those 4 stitches and cut it. You have your yarn where you started. Now to finish it off, I simply thread a tapestry needle, and I run the finished yarn at the top down through the length of that I-cord inside there. Pull it out at some point. I can then snug that up, and I can clip that yarn off, and that will make a nice finished end of that I-cord there. On the bottom of it, I can take the yarn where I used my first end. I thread my tapestry needle, and I come in at the base of that I-cord, and I kind of pick up the base, pick up these stitches here, and just really kind of cinch that thing closed, tightening it up, making sure it's nice and firm, and then I can run that yarn back up the length of that I-cord, pull it through, tug on it a little more, and then clip those ends off. And now you can see, once I clip those ends off, that I-cord is beautifully knitted into that space. Look at the back side of it. It's almost not there. And it is there, and look how nice it comes right off the top of that stitch so that you don't even know where it stopped and started. So that's knitted in I-cords. I hope you'll enjoy working with it as much as I have.